Hey book lovers, I'm Elise, and today we're going to talk about my most anticipated book releases for Q1 of 2024. So I have a list here, and I have my handy dandy Goodreads. So starting with some January 9th releases, the first book is a fantasy horror called The Djinn Waits 100 Years by Scribd Khan. So the description for this book that caught my eye just talks about it being very atmospheric and taking place at a mansion that's haunted by a djinn. And the next book coming out January 9th is The Heiress by Rachel Hawkins. This is a thriller that I actually just read. I did have an e-arc for it from NetGalley, and I read it for a recent vlog. I really enjoyed it. It's my favorite Rachel Hawkins thriller so far. If you like rich people drama, then I think this would be a good one for you to pick up, but I'm really excited for it to come out because I can't wait for other people to read it, and I'm really hoping that a lot of people love it. Moving on to the January 16th books, the first one is Where You End by Abbott Collar. This is a mystery thriller about identical twins. One of them wakes up from a coma and has amnesia, but she recognizes her identical twin when she wakes up. But it kind of turns out that she can't really trust her twin. And the description also talks about a new age cult. The next book coming out January 16th is Only If You're Lucky by Stacey Willingham. This is her next thriller. After the letdown of her most recent release, I am really excited about this one. It talks about college friendships and there's a murder. It makes me think a little bit of In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead, and I really enjoyed that one, so I'm kind of hoping it's gonna have a little bit similar vibes. And the last book coming out January 16th is The Silence in Her Eyes by Armando Lucas Correa. It's a thriller, and it caught my eye because we've had a few books come out where authors put in a character who has facial blindness. So they're not blind, but it's like a recognition thing. While the character in this book, she's not blind per se, but she can't detect movement. So she still walks around with a cane, so people assume that she's blind. And it kind of sounds like she saw something that somebody didn't mean for her to see. And I only have one book on my list coming out January 30th, and that is A Quantum Love Story by Mike Chen. This one is a science fiction romance, and there's talk about time loops and time travel. Those buzzwords just kind of hit for me, and I know I need to pick it up. The next set of books are coming out February 6th. The first is 50 Beasts to Break Your Heart by Jenna Rose Nethercott. This is a dark fantasy, horror fantasy anthology of short stories, and this is the same author that wrote Thistlefoot, which came out I think back in 2022. Next is And Then There Was Silence by Candace Robinson. It's about a woman whose husband passed away, and upon his death, she became the sole owner of this cabin in the woods, so she goes to stay there, and it kind of sounds like being there day after day without the love of her life. She's kind of starting to lose her sanity, but then also she starts to uncover some long hidden mysteries. And the last book coming out February 5th is Bride by Ellie Hazelwood. So this one is a paranormal romance between a vampire bride and an alpha werewolf. February 13th is the next date, and I do have the most books for this particular date, the first of which is What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher. This is the next novella in the, I don't know what the name of the series is, but the first book was What Moves the Dead, following Alex Easton. That was the one that was a retelling of Fall of the House of Usher. This was another e-arc that I had through NetGalley, and I have already read it. I absolutely loved it, so I'm really excited for it to come out because I need to get a copy for myself so I can add it to my shelf. So this one continues to follow Alex Easton. After everything that happened at the House of Usher, they decide that they want a little bit of rest and relaxation. So along with their friend, sidekick, main man, Angus, they head to Alex's hunting lodge where there's supposed to be a caretaker taking care of the place. Well, they get there, everything is in disarray. Unfortunately, the caretaker passed away, so they have to figure out what happened to the caretaker, but then also quickly hire a new one because Miss Potter, who is the mycologist from the first book, is returning. She's coming for a visit, and they want to make sure everything is spruced up for when she arrives. The next book coming out February 13th is The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. This is another fantasy. It's about a magical book called The Book of Doors. It allows its wielder to possess the power of traveling anywhere in the world that they want to. But of course, an artifact so magical is going to be highly sought after by other, more dangerous people. So herein lies the issue within the book. Next up is The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden. This book is an historical fantasy set during the time of the Great War. It sounds like there's two points of view, a combat nurse and then also her brother, who's a soldier. She believes her brother to be dead, so she returns to Belgium and volunteers at a private hospital. And then it sounds like we get some flashbacks of the year prior from her brother's point of view so that we find out what happened to him. Also coming out February 13th is An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson, who I think is the same author as, yes, A Dowry of Blood. This is another gothic fantasy horror taking place at an isolated college in Massachusetts. Next up is The Briar Book of the Dead by A.G. Slatter. This is another fantasy, and it's said to be a dark and addictive tale of witches, ancient mysteries, and sins that refuse to be buried. And the final book coming out February 13th is The Stranger in Her House by John Marrs. John Marrs is probably one of my favorite thriller authors. Granted, I have only read 2 of his books, but they were both 5 stars. His twists and his ability to keep you entertained and in the story is phenomenal. So this book follows Paul, who claims to be sent by a charity to help out elderly patients, one of which is Gwen, and he gets to know Gwen. Sounds like he kind of weasels his way into Gwen's life, makes her trust him, makes her rely on him, but Gwen's daughter is starting to pick up on some red flags with Paul, and she's not entirely sure that he is there for good reasons. The next book is coming out February 20th, and that is Night for Day by Roselle Lim. This is a fantasy romance about 2 people who are just destined to be together. The last book coming out February 20th is Nowhere Like Home by Sarah Shepard. So this book follows Lena, who gets a call from her old friend Rhiannon, who she thought disappeared years ago, but it sounds like she joined a mommune, or a commune for moms, living off the grid in a community of other women. Now that Lena is a new mom herself, Rhiannon invites her to join them at the commune. And it sounds like some crazy things start to happen, and Lena quickly realizes there's something not right about this community. The only book that I have for February 27th is The Butcher of the Forest by Premi Mohammed. This one is also a fantasy. It's a fantasy novella about a woman who tries to save the children of a wrathful tyrant. There's talk of a dangerous otherworldly forest and monstrous things. It sounds like it's going to be really atmospheric, so I'm very interested to see if this is something I'm going to love. Next are books coming out March 5th, and the first of which is Baby X by Kira Peikoff. This was the 3rd and final e-arc that I read in my recent reading vlog. It's a sci-fi thriller, and it takes place in the not too distant future. Like, millennials are still around, they're like in their 50s and 60s, and science has made huge strides to the point where any 2 people can have a baby because doctors and scientists are able to just swab your cheek and manipulate your cheek cells to turn into either a sperm or an egg cell. So the good old-fashioned way of conception, IVF, things like that, that's not a thing anymore. People don't have to worry about it. The science fiction details of the world in this book that the author created, I absolutely loved it. So I'm really excited for this book to come out. I need a copy for my shelves, and I cannot wait for other people to start reading it. Next up, also out March 5th, is The Haunting of Velkwood by Gwendolyn Kist. It is the same author as another book that I have, which is Reluctant Immortals. I haven't read this yet. This is a gothic horror. It's said to be a chilling novel about 3 childhood friends who miraculously survived the night everyone in their suburban neighborhood turned into ghosts. It's also said to be for fans of the show Yellow Jackets. And the final book coming out March 5th is Murder Road by Simone St. James. I have yet to find a Simone St. James that I really love. Hers are usually horror or paranormal thriller type books. It takes place in 1995. A young newlywed couple picks up a hitchhiker that may or may not be the cause of a string of murders along this road. That's why you don't pick up hitchhikers. Okay, next up are books coming out March 19th. The first on my list is Expiration Dates by Rebecca Searle, or Rebecca Surley. This is the same author as One Italian Summer. A lot of people had a lot of bad things to say about that book. I really liked it. There's definitely an element of fantasy or magical realism. So this book is about a woman who every person, I don't know if it's every person that she meets or every person that she meets with the intent of getting involved with romantically, she receives a piece of paper with the expiration date of their relationship, until one day she meets somebody and the paper just has his name. Like, usually it's a name and a date or length of time, but it's just his name. Of course, this makes her think that, oh, is this my soulmate? But then as they're getting to know each other, she's really starting to doubt that the universe or whatever it is that controls this gift that she's had her entire life, if it knows what they're talking about. Next is Floating Hotel by Grace Curtis. This one is a science fiction, and it's actually a debut, it's a cozy cozy debut science fiction novel. It's a story of misfits, rebels, and found family. It's basically this big floating space station. People are on there and it's floating around space, and it has like the best food and the best amenities. All year round it moves from planet to planet. So I don't know if it must. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if people are stuck on there or if it's just like going to different planets and then people can get off, people can get on, kind of like a cruise. And it kind of sounds like it's more like a cruise. It's a suborbital luxury cruise, essentially. This sounds really interesting. I've never read anything like that before, and my interest is piqued. Next is The Mars House by Natasha Pulley. This one also sounded really interesting. So this is another science fiction. In this book, people live on Mars. So an Earth refugee and a xenophobic Mars politician who fake marry to save their reputations and their planet in the wake of environmental catastrophe. Oh, but the refugee from Earth has a condition. Their body is not adjusted to Mars' lower gravity and so poses a danger to those born on or naturalized to Mars. Next is Antibot by Sierra Greer. This one is about an AI companion, I think. It says it's for fans of Never Let Me Go, which I think is by Kazuo Ishiguro. I'm assuming it is. I have not read that book, but I've read Clara and the Sun, and I just didn't like the writing style of that one, and it was super literary, which wasn't really my thing. So that makes me a little bit nervous. Actually, is literary listed? It's not. It's just listed as science fiction, feminism. Oh, literary. It is literary. I'll still give it a try because it sounds interesting. So it's a provocative novel about the relationship between a female robot and her human owner, exploring questions of intimacy, power, autonomy, and control. So Antibot was created to be the perfect girlfriend, designed to satisfy his emotional and physical needs. So she's a 1950s housewife, is what it sounds like. The final set of books that I have on my list are coming out March 26th, and that is The Good, the Bad, and the Aunties by Jessie Q. Sutanto. This is book 3 in the Dial A for Aunties series. I loved Dial A for Aunties. This is like a cozy mystery series. There's a little bit of romance in it. It's super funny. However, I did not like the second book in the series. It was actually really hard for me to get through. So I was a little bit worried that maybe I just, you know, Jessie Q. Sutanto was like a one and done author for me. But then I did read Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers, which was also a cozy mystery, and I really enjoyed that one. So I am excited for this third installment in this series, just to see how everything wraps up. I don't know if, I guess I don't know if there's going to be more, but I love the aunties in this series. Like even in the second one that I didn't like that much, I still love the aunties. Next is Diavola by Jennifer Thorne. This is a horror. So it sounds like this girl goes on a vacation with her family, and her only 2 rules are to tread lightly and survive. So she's got an older sister, she has a twin brother. They're staying in a remote villa in Monteperso until things start going off the rails. The strange noises at night, the unsettling warnings from the local villagers, and the dark, violent past of the villa itself. Sounds like they're going on a family vacation at a potentially haunted villa with a dark history, a lot of dark secrets, and it sounds like even the villagers are trying to warn them. The last book is How to Kill a Guy in 10 Ways. This one actually lists a publication date of March 28th, not the 26th. It seems to be like a book about a female serial killer. She, I don't know if she has like a hotline or something, but if a woman's on a date with a guy and things are just not going well, like he's a creep, he's a predator, things like that, call up their girl Millie and she takes care of it. Some of the reviews talk about the book being really funny. It kind of looks really comical, and honestly, it sounds like what I wanted to get out of Finley Donovan. Okay, there is my list of, I think it's 28 books. Let's say 25 plus. 25 plus books coming out in the first quarter of 2024 that I'm really excited about. I want these books on my shelves. I want to read them. I want you to read them. I want to talk about them with people. Let me know in the comments down below if you already had any of these books on your radar, or if me talking about them put them on your radar and maybe I convinced you to add them to your TBR. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and until next time, bye.